Picture this. You're standing in the middle of the grocery store, bundled in your coat, staring down the long, chilly corridor of the freezer aisle. On your left, an endless wall of frozen pizzas, brightly colored popsicles, and microwavable dinners promising a feast in 4 minutes. On your right, towering stacks of frozen broccoli, wild blueberries, and pre-diced onions. You have always been told at some point in your life that fresh is always best, and that the freezer aisle is a nutritional graveyard where real food goes to die. But is that actually true? Is that bag of frozen spinach really inferior to a slightly wilting bundle sitting in the produce section? Or is the freezer actually hiding the most nutrient-dense, economical, and scientifically fascinating foods in the entire store? Welcome back to Beyond the Label, the podcast where we dive into the science of food and nutrition so you can make informed choices at the grocery store. I'm your host, and today we're tackling episode 8, Frozen Foods. Today, we're going to melt away the sensationalism and look at the cold, hard science. We will explore how the freezing process actually works, how frozen produce stacks up against fresh produce, why a frozen TV dinner might have a surprisingly high sodium count, and what the latest food safety research says about navigating this aisle. No guilt trips, no food shaming, just the objective facts. To understand frozen food, we first have to understand the sheer biological power of the freezing process. For most of human history, preserving food meant relying on heavy salting, smoking, or fermentation. But it was not until the 1920s that a man named Clarence Birdseye observed indigenous Inuit populations in the Arctic flash-freezing fish in sub-zero winter air. He noticed that when the fish thawed months later, it tasted remarkably fresh. Birdseye essentially commercialized the observation, creating the modern flash-freezing industry. But what exactly is happening to the food at a molecular level? According to the United States Department of Agriculture, freezing food to 0 degrees Fahrenheit or negative 18 degrees Celsius effectively presses the pause button on the biological clock. At this temperature, the water inside food turns to ice. Because water is required for bacteria, yeasts, and molds to multiply, turning that water into solid ice brings microbial growth to a complete halt. This leads to our first major takeaway. Freezing is, and of itself, the ultimate natural preservative. If a food is kept consistently at 0 degrees Fahrenheit, it is safe to eat almost indefinitely. The pathogens that cause foodborne illnesses simply cannot grow. Therefore, a basic bag of frozen peas or frozen chicken breasts does not actually need chemical preservatives to survive in your freezer for a year. The ice is doing all the heavy lifting. This brings us to one of the most persistent, deeply ingrained myths of the culinary world. The idea that fresh fruits and vegetables are always nutritionally superior to frozen ones. It feels like common sense, but the scientific evidence tells a radically different story. Let's track the journey of a fresh vegetable. When a spinach leaf or a green bean is plucked from the earth, it is biologically cut off from its nutrient source. The moment it is harvested, it begins a process called respiration. It is alive, but it begins breaking down its stored carbohydrates, proteins, and vitamins to survive. That vegetable is packed into a truck, shipped hundreds or thousands of miles, placed in a distribution center, transported to your local grocery store, and then sits under fluorescent lights on a display shelf before it finally makes it to your refrigerator. By the time you eat the fresh green bean a week or two after harvest, it has naturally lost a significant percentage of its nutrients, particularly vitamin C and certain B vitamins. Now let's look at a frozen green bean. Vegetables designated for the freezer aisle are typically harvested at their absolute peak of ripeness, right when they're bursting with the maximum amount of vitamins and minerals. Within hours of being packed, they are taken to a processing facility. Here, they undergo a crucial step called blanching. They are briefly purged into boiling water or steam. This does not cook the vegetable. Rather, it deactivates the natural enzymes inside the plant that cause color loss, flavor degradation, and nutrient breakdown. Immediately after blanching, the vegetables are flash frozen. Because of this rapid process, the nutrients are effectively locked into a frozen time capsule. Numerous studies evaluating the nutritional profile of produce have concluded that frozen fruits and vegetables are often just as nutrient-dense, and in some cases, even more nutrient-dense than their fresh counterparts that have endured a long supply chain. So if you're avoiding frozen broccoli because you thought you were shortchanging your health, the science says you can confidently stock up. If freezing is such a perfect, natural preservation method, why do health professionals often warn us about frozen foods? The distinction lies entirely in the level of processing. A bag of plain frozen blueberries is a single ingredient whole food. A frozen microwavable pepperoni pizza or a Salisbury steak TV dinner is a highly engineered, ultra-processed meal. The much larger concern with pre-packed frozen meals is sodium. When food is frozen and then blasted with microwave radiation, it tends to lose some of its aromatic flavor profile. To make sure the meal still tastes deeply savory and satisfying, manufacturers frequently load these products with salt. A single frozen meal can easily contain between 800 and over 1,000 milligrams of sodium. The American Heart Association recommends that most adults ideally consume no more than 1,500 milligrams of sodium per entire day for optimal cardiovascular health. Eating a single frozen meal could push you dangerously close to the daily limit in just one sitting. Chronic overconsumption of sodium is directly linked with hypertension, which is a major risk factor for heart disease and stroke. Because the freezer aisle is so misunderstood, there is a lot of bad information floating around out there. Let's clear up a few of the most common myths. The first is panic over freezer word. You pull a steak or a bag of fruit out of the freezer and it is covered in grayish-brown, leathery spots and ice crystals. Many people throw this food in the trash, assuming it has gone bad or unsafe to eat. The USDA explicitly states that freezer burn is simply a food quality issue, not a food safety issue. It is caused by moisture migrating out of the food and oxygen coming into contact with the surface. Essentially, the food is dehydrating in the localized cold air. While freezer burn food might taste a bit dry or tough, it will absolutely not make you sick. You can safely cut away the freezer burn portions and cook the rest. Second, there is a massive misconception about how to safely thaw frozen food. We've all seen a frozen chicken breast left out in the kitchen counter to thaw all afternoon. According to federal food safety guidelines, this could be a dangerous practice. While the center of the chicken might still be frozen solid, the outer layers of the meat will quickly reach room temperature. This pushes the food into what experts call the danger zone. The temperature range between 40 and 140 degrees Fahrenheit, where bacteria multiply exponentially. The safest ways to thaw foods are slowly in the refrigerator, submerged in cold, frequently changed water, or defrosted in the microwave if you plan to cook it immediately. So how can you use this science to make smarter choices the next time you brave the freezer aisle? You do not need to avoid it, you just need to know how to navigate it. First, flip the bag over and read the ingredients. When buying frozen vegetables or fruits, look for products that were only ingredient listed as the produce itself. Beware of vegetables packaged in a light cheese sauce or with savory seasoning. These pre-sauced options are where the massive amounts of added sodium, hidden sugars, and extra calories are sneaked into otherwise perfectly healthy vegetables. Buy the plain frozen vegetables and add your own simple seasoning, olive oil, or squeeze a fresh lemon at home. Second, if you rely on frozen meals for convenience or portion control, be highly analytical about the nutritional label. Turn your attention immediately to the sodium content. Many health organizations recommend looking for frozen meals that contain 600 milligrams of sodium or less per serving. Additionally, check the saturated fat and look for meals that incorporate lean proteins and whole grains. There are actually many fantastic health-conscious frozen meal brands on the market today that utilize herbs and spices instead of heavy salt to deliver flavor. Lastly, embrace the freezer as a tool for reducing food waste and saving money. Fresh berries out of season can be incredibly expensive and spoil in a matter of days. A large bag of frozen berries is often half the price, contains just as many antioxidants, and will patiently wait in your freezer until you're ready to make a smoothie. That brings us to the end of episode 8 of Beyond the Label. Hopefully, you now view the freezer not as a nutritional compromise, but as an incredible piece of preserving technology. You know that flash freezing knocks in vital nutrients, making frozen produce a genuine superfood hiding in plain sight. You also know, when it comes to highly processed frozen dinners, sodium is a true ingredient to watch out for. By understanding the biological reality of frozen foods, you can cut through the fresh is always best marketing myth, save money, reduce food waste, and build incredibly healthy meals entirely from the freezer aisle. Thank you so much for tuning in. Keep asking questions, keep reading those labels, and I'll catch you next episode.